We must be prepared to recognize who we have been, the stories we have carried, the essential sacredness that these hold, and how they create the trajectory toward an ascension of the self.
Understanding that your worth in who you are as a human being is never in doubt.
The state of ascension that we are able to achieve takes us to a place of illumination and invincibility. And the topic of today's show is all about the invincible mind.
When you really know who you are, when you see the infinite potential in front of you, when you feel your worth, now you can harness the power of I am.
The invincible mind is an incredibly sacred state of being, a place where intuition flourishes and life bends you to your will. In this state, you have realized your power as a creator and are open to the beauty of life and where it takes you in terms of your peak potential. Your dreams are now closer than you may have ever imagined, and a new you is now emerging. And according to my guest, Howard Falco, attaining the invincible mind is a process of implementing 8 states of consciousness into your daily life. The state of readiness, the state of self-awareness, the state of self-realization, the state of infinite potential, the state of intention, the state of humility, the state of persistence, and the state of faith.
Welcome. You have entered the realm of 1111 Talk Radio. Your host is SIMRAN. It's time to discover your own language with the universe. Empower yourself, broaden your mind, open your heart, and discover who you are. Now, here's your host, SIMRAN.
Welcome. It is a delight to be with you on another week of 1111 Talk Radio. It is pretty palpable to see that there are many individuals, and perhaps yourself, feeling a bit uneasy, maybe encountering fear, putting your head down to stay busy, to not have to face some of what is taking place, or allowing yourself to be distracted by some of your own addictions, behaviors, patterns, preoccupations. And this is actually a time that we are receiving a grand invitation. If we're willing to be present and open to what is happening outside of us, we will see that it is not only redirecting us back inside, but it is an invitation to rise higher. We are here for the purposes of transcendence, and although that may seem like transcendence of the world, what we're truly here to do is transcend ourselves. We are to become invincible. And Howard Falco, my guest, says that outer accomplishments without inner fulfillment or peace produce a hollow feeling. Many who run from an unsettled inner self keep chasing more material success or indulge in activities that produce a lot of adrenaline and short-term distraction. The ultimate goal of the invincible mindset is not to think you will manifest what you want. It is to know you will manifest it. This knowledge really can't be faked. It must be a knowing beyond all thinking. It must be a true state of being I am. Do you completely trust the process of life, no matter the circumstance or outcome? Do you hold the 8 states of conscious creation firmly within your being and your body to attain the invincible mind? That's what we're going to explore today. And I am uber excited about my guest today. It has been over a decade since he's been on, and he really does some incredible things when it comes to supporting individuals, empowering them, and bringing forth some ideas when it comes to mindset and consciousness that I think are so timely. Howard Falco is a modern-day spiritual teacher and mindset and mental strength coach. He has authored 3 books on mindfulness and the power of the mind. The first book was I Am, The Power of Discovering Who You Really Are, a very powerful and very beautiful book. His second book was titled Time in a Bottle, Mastering the Experience of Life. And this new book that we're talking about today is titled Invincible, The Mindset of Infinite Potential and the Secret to Inevitable Success, which is releasing very, very soon. Howard has worked successfully with hundreds of college and professional athletes, including those in MLB, the NBA, and the PGA and LPGA Tour. He has worked with CEOs, corporate executives, and everyday individuals looking for a new way of overcoming life's challenges, empowering their mind, and achieving new breakthrough results. And that's what you're going to gain in today's show. Welcome, Howard, back to 1111 Talk Radio. It is such a joy to be with you.
Thank you so much, Simran. I am really excited to be back here and honored to be on.
I want to start with I am. It is an integral part, foundational part, I think, of all three of your books and the philosophies that you teach and work with. And I think that there's a very unconscious I am statement constantly stated without us realizing it. It's stated in our words, it's stated in our thoughts, it's stated in our energy. But what we're putting behind the I am is something that we have to be really, really aware of, because that's what's creating what's around us. And when you talk about invincible, that I am is also one of those things that we have to level up, to rise to a higher octave of. Speak a little bit to that as a beginning foundation for where we're going.
Yeah, the core idea in the first book, I Am, was to reveal the power that we all have inside of us to create our lives, where it comes from. And it comes from the truth that we believe, not what we think we want or what we desire, but really it comes from who we are, from that core foundational piece, which is oftentimes subconscious in terms of our awareness. It's subconscious, it's not conscious. So we're creating, and we don't even know at times what we're creating from these I am statements, but our life ends up being the reality of that. And so in I Am, I tried to help close the gap of awareness where people could see the difference between what their life was producing and what the truth was at the core. And they could close that gap so they could take more control over their identity and their narrative. And that to me is really the heart of what self-awareness is about, is really understanding where that narrative comes from. And that's what I term in the new book as next level mindfulness, where you really understand how you are thinking and feeling and what you are believing and how that's directly connected to your results. So in Invincible, what I did was I gave in part one, which is called self-awareness, the process of really gaining that understanding. And then when you get to part two, breakthrough, then you can harness that power of I am. But if you start with just I am statements without doing the work of self-understanding and changing the constitution of what you believe about who you are, that power doesn't have as much punch, so to speak. But when you really know who you are, when you see the infinite potential in front of you, when you feel your worth, now you can harness the power of I am.
That's an important point to expand on, because I do believe we were at a time in the personal growth and spiritual growth industries where a lot of focus was put on positive affirmations or simply making the statements. And although that was beneficial at the time, times change, we change as beings, we rise into higher states by our mental, emotional, physical, energetic, spiritual selves. And so the shift has to be even higher now, because the outside has raised its level of constriction and challenge. We can't just state the affirmations, and there has to be a deeper level of self-awareness that takes place, as you say. You talk about 8 states of conscious creation, and before that state of self-awareness, you talk about a state of readiness.
The state of readiness is probably the first and most important place, because you can ask and pray and desire all you want, but if you're not ready for how the universe is going to meet you, because the universe is here to meet you with awareness first and foremost, and it uses every tool in reality to bring you that awareness as it relates to what you say you want to create. So the minute that you say you want something, life begins to sort of does an inventory. Okay, what do you know about creating this? And if you haven't created this yet, what awareness is missing that will give you the state of being, that will create the actions that you're looking to put forth in the universe or in the world with the correct energy behind it? What awareness is missing that will give you that state of being that is needed to create it? So that state of readiness has to be there. A lot of people They wanted the easy affirmations sort of to be able to say these I am statements and then feel like they could create it by stating that with energy. But if the foundational understanding and sense of self-appreciation, respect, worthiness, and love is not there, it can't manifest. It has to match with who you believe you are. And so that awareness helps shed light on the truth of who you are. But you have to be ready for that, because you're going to have to give up a lot of the old stories and the old patterns and go into some uncharted territory just for a little bit with some new feelings about yourself.
This is all very much aligned with the new trilogy that I've released, in which I help to dissect the three aspects and show that shadow self and that ego self as one state of being that we lock in and focus on. And through your book, Invincible, you're coming at it from a different angle where you're helping individuals to understand that this whole creative process is actually a demonstration of that self-fulfilling prophecy where we allow the ego that we have or the identity that we have to continue to fulfill what it believes it is. You say anytime you are not at peace with who you believe you are, your ego will go to work to reconcile the imbalance of mind. You also help individuals to understand how this identity and this ego are actually working to bring us to these states of awareness.
So the ego has a really important job in our life, and that is to help us validate our existence, protect our existence, defend our existence. So when who we are is not being fulfilled, the ego goes into red alert mode to make sure it can reconcile that imbalance and correct it and make us feel at peace again. So the ego is always working for us. That understanding of the ego, instead of resisting it or trying to destroy your ego, you become an observer to it. And as an observer of it, you can see, why is my ego acting like this? So let's say you go to a holiday dinner and somebody in your family triggers you, because no one knows how to trigger us better than our own family members. Instead of getting upset at why this emotion is swelling in you and why you're getting angry and upset, you observe it and you say, where is it coming from? What did I allow that person to get to in me that caused this emotional response? And it gives you that tiny little space of mindfulness and awareness to be able to say, I see the pattern now. I've done this my whole life. Every time he or she says that to me, I go into this fight or flight mode to protect myself, when I now realize there's nothing I need to protect, because I know who I am, I trust who I am, and I love who I am. Therefore, I'm going to send new instructions to my ego that I don't need their approval, number one, or number two, I am not going to allow them to set me off balance. What'll generally happen in that case is that you won't respond, and then their triggering mechanisms will increase in pressure, because people don't like when you're not acting who you should be, or who they expect you to be. And if you stay strong in who you are, eventually the storm will break. You will break the spell of their consistent triggering of you, and you will become this new version of yourself because you have sent new instructions to your ego through that space of mindfulness. But SIMRAN, it came because you did not resist the ego or say it was a bad thing. You said, what is it doing? What is it trying to protect or defend in me that I want to change?
There's an actual embrace that's taking place where we're really willing to hold and embrace exactly who we're being in that moment. But there's also being willing to see the lens that we're looking through, the lens that would have been the reactive versus
Correct.
the lens that says, I can now make a different choice in how to respond to this. And that's the shift to a different identity. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. If your intention is to be in more peace and not get thrown off balance as much, then does this old pattern still serve me? And if it doesn't serve me, can I go into this slightly uncomfortable space where I haven't known it to be, because everything in me is telling me to react with emotion and anger and frustration? Can I just stay in this peace through this and send new instructions to my ego long enough to where it understands this is now who I am? I'm aware of the old pattern. I'm aware of the old self. It's not who I desire to be anymore. This is who I want to be.
And you also share in the book that memory is one way that we accomplish protection or guardedness, or even this prophetic way of recreating the circumstances or the relationships or the types of experiences that come back at us, so that we can prove to ourselves that what we believed was correct. But that's where the very kernel that needs to change sits. It's us wanting to prove to ourselves a belief.
Correct. We want to protect ourselves too. If somebody hurt us before, we're going to have a memory of that. And our ego and our senses are going to use everything it can to protect us from being hurt again. So even if it has to look at somebody in terms of shape, color, size, those will create a heightened sense of awareness because that person in shape, color, and size hurt me before. But the distinction and the level of discernment that I believe this work helps people get to is this understanding that, well, when you burn your hand on a hot stove in the kitchen, your awareness, as soon as you go into a kitchen, I don't care if it's your friend's kitchen, your relative's kitchen, or your own, is going to be, where's that stove? I want to know where that is because I don't want to put my hand down because I don't want to burn myself. Because the only personality that a hot stove has is hot. However, every human being is distinct and unique. For you to look at memory and patterns when it comes to individual only creates a self-fulfilling prophecy that won't give you an opportunity to connect with that individual in a way that might change things for you. You have to look at human beings that everyone has the opportunity to care for you and to love you. And this person might be that change. It doesn't have to be the hurt that it was in the last person just because they sound like that person, they look like that person, etc. And that's an important distinction when it comes to memory when we're looking for change in our lives.
In your book, Invincible, The Mindset of Infinite Potential and the Secret to Inevitable Success, you say that there are two truths that immediately dissolve any future negative projections. One is that every moment of life is distinct and unique. And the second one is that in each moment, there are infinite possibilities available to us for creation. Then it means that our true DNA is actually creative capacity. And it is the ability to create anything that we want. Talk a little bit about the different ways that we become who we are as identity that we then have to outgrow.
Our identity sets what we believe to be true about ourselves in motion and creates all the inertia. And the identity is comprised of three components: our nurturing, how we were reared since we were born, whether we were loved and secured, whether we felt safe, whether we were changed, whether we were fed properly, and how long we had to cry. Like that sets a certain sense of security in us. Then there's our personal experiences that when we go out and we form an ego and an identity of who we are, we have experiences that sort of consecrate those beliefs that we've had since we were born and we started to be aware of ourselves about who we are. And then the third thing, and probably the sneakiest part of our identity that shapes what we believe is true for ourselves, is our genetics. It's not just eye color and hair color and skin color that we get. We get certain tendencies, certain beliefs, certain fears that shape who we are and what we're willing to do. Here's the exciting part. At any single moment, that identity is changeable because who we are is truly unlimited. Once we're able to see the limiting beliefs that we've had on an unlimited, infinite universe, we begin to expand how we feel, A, about who we are, and B, about what we can do and create in the world. And everybody has different layers as it comes to our identity, but each person has the opportunity to reset that identity, to expand it, to shift it, to change it. And the minute that we change the belief in who we are and what we're worth, we automatically begin to send out a new energy to the universe, create new actions, new thoughts, an entire new frequency is coming out of us. And then here's the great and probably the biggest secret part of it all is that life knows what frequency we're sending out because it's been sending back to us a matching frequency in terms of creation. The minute you change who you are, the universe begins to send you new experiences, new people, new opportunities, and things begin to change. And it can happen fast or it can happen gradually over time. That's the exciting part about identity, is that it's changeable.
And it really equates also to confidence, because the level of our confidence and belief in self then amplifies what we have the ability to create and attract. How come we can't just pretend to be confident? What is it that has to really be embodied within to activate a higher level of creation?
So this gets back to the truth of infinite possibility. If anything is possible in this universe, then what is it that limits us from the belief in that possibility? And that's why you can't fool the universe. You cannot fake your belief and your confidence. I've never really liked the statement, fake it till you make it, because there's no authentic, true spiritual grounding in that. It has to come from an understanding. And I'll give you one of the biggest statements I make in the book that I offer the reader to reflect on. It's one of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself as a human being when it comes to what you desire. Why not me?
Mm.
Why not me? Whatever surfaces in your mind that tells you why you can't is a lie. And that's the starting point for you to start to question, challenge, and replace. That's why confidence can't be faked. It has to come from a true understanding when you finally realize, wow, why not me? I'm as worthy as any other human being. I exist here. I don't care what my past has been. It doesn't mean anything. All that matters is who I decide to be now and what I'm willing to do to put the conditions together to demonstrate my intention and give what I want to create more of an opportunity and a higher probability of manifesting.
Howard Falco says in his new book, Invincible, when it comes to elevating your mind to a powerful creator of your intentions, you cannot be driven by need. You cannot be in a state of fear. You must trust who you are, no matter the circumstances, to keep the probability of success in your favor. You cannot run from who you are. Who you are is defined by what you believe about yourself, but you can change what you believe and hence change who you are. So take a breath and ask yourself this very powerful question. Who do I choose to be now? Drawing on years of success coaching star athletes and many others looking to achieve desired change, peak performance expert Howard Falco shares his direct step-by-step formula for next-level mindfulness and success. Tap into your infinite potential and develop a powerful and invulnerable state of mind. Find out more information about his private coaching, howardfalco.com. And this new book that we're talking about today is titled Invincible, The Mindset of Infinite Potential and the Secret to Inevitable Success, which is releasing very, very soon. We'll be right back after these messages.
You are listening to 1111 Talk Radio. SIMRAN is an award-winning author, publisher of 1111 Magazine, powerful speaker of wisdom, and a life mentor. Find out more at IamSimran.com. Now, back to 1111 Talk Radio.
Before we get back to Howard Falco and his wonderful book that is titled Invincible, The Mindset of Infinite Potential and the Secrets to Inevitable Success, I want to mention that you can follow me on Substack, publication there which is Beyond the Illusion. I share a lot of my own musings and meditations and would love to stay connected there. And also my second new podcast called You Are the Journey. The inability to self-reflect and admit when you're incorrect is the path to suffering. The happiest people in the world are the most positive, optimistic, humble, self-reflecting, and self-aware. They have the ability to open up and embrace truth and flow with change. This is from Howard Falco's book, Invincible, The Mindset of Infinite Potential and the Secret to Inevitable Success. You can find out more at howardfalco.com. His other websites are totalmindsports.com and also his foundation, 8wisdom.org. Be sure to check out all that he is doing. Trust is one of those places that people can tend to struggle with. They want to trust the universe. They want to trust themselves. They want to trust the world. But there can be a very deep layer of mistrust because things haven't happened the way that they wanted them to happen. One of the statements I've said since my first book, Conversations with the Universe, is you are not on a journey, you are the journey. You are experiencing itself. Talk about how to build that trust.
Well, nothing happens without faith. Nothing. And that's a faith in who you are and the possibilities of life. So if there's fear or need, let's say there's need comes from fear when you peel back the layers. Because if I don't have this, I won't survive. If it's coming from a state of fear, then fear is the dominant belief if it's producing energy in your body and your mind. So if fear is the dominant belief that this won't happen or I can't do this or I won't do this, then that has to be the direction the universe takes in matching you back with an experience. With faith that you know that you're going to be okay no matter what, and you have faith in the process of creating this from the most optimistic state of mind, the entire frequency of energy is different. The entire output of your mind is different. And the universe can then look to match that with the conditions that increase the probabilities of what you want occurring. In dealing with athletes, this is really big because they've had experience where they didn't succeed. But what they need to do and what makes great athletes great is they have no memory of that. They only have the optimistic attitude, incredible optimism about what can be created. And they go forth with that mindset. And that's often why they accomplish what they accomplish, because they have this mindset that says, I can, not that I can't. And so that's why it's really important in the process of mindfulness and self-awareness to see where your mindset is, what energy is being generated out of your mindset, and what thoughts are sponsoring that energy. Because then you can begin to challenge those and change them if they do not serve you. And I can assure everyone listening that fear, negativity, and need do not serve creation. They only serve destruction or time.
You have quite a few scenarios that you present in the book. Is it really necessary to go and find the nurture, the nature, the genetics as to where something came from and then move from there?
For athletes, they have a desire. They want results. So as soon as we're able to see what their mindset is in terms of results, we can find, or they can find, where any sense of limitation has been that might have kept them from those results. And so sometimes they have to go back and have to realize, wow, my father told me I would never amount to anything. And even though I've wanted all this, that's been in the back of my mind. And we have to say, hey, does that really impact what you're capable of and who you are? And do you have to believe that? And was that ever even true? Because the truth has only been the infinite possibility and potential for you. That's the only thing that's ever really been true. Once they get that realization that that one thing from their childhood is what's kept them only at X level instead of X plus level, and they realize, wow, that was never true, and I got this far under that understanding, how far can I go now? Or someone in a relationship, had a bad relationship where a boyfriend or girlfriend said, you'll never find anybody. And they believed that. And because of that, they've been in a cycle where they haven't found the true love that they want. And finally, they reflect on where their thoughts and limitations have come from to realize, wow, that has never been true. I may have lived out of it for 10 years, but not anymore. I now know what my worth is, and I'm willing to go out there with a new energy. It's important, whether it's with athletes or individuals, that everyone has a sense of mindfulness in what they believe is possible for them as it relates to what they're trying to create, and keep removing any of the limitation that creates time and suffering. And that's why you go more and more into faith and trust and no expectation, but simple creative intention. Let the universe do the rest. And it will. It's been doing it infinitely.
I want to continue the conversation around the ego, and you speak about it in terms of being active versus passive. What purpose does that serve for us in our own self-awareness and growth?
So again, the ego is designed to validate our existence. So when you're in passive ego mode, it's doing its regular tasks every day, getting up, showering, going to the grocery store, going to work, interacting with people in pleasantries on a regular basis. The active ego is when that ego or that identity is challenged, when the mind is not believing that it's being validated in existence or there's a threat to its existence. That's when it feels it has to go into active mode and flare up and start to pronounce great things or start to counterbalance what the mind is saying, that you are not that, you are not that, you are less than that. And so the ego's in this sort of high alert mode where it's saying, yes, I am. Look at the cars I have. Look at the buildings I have. Look at what I do. Look at how great I am. That's more of the active ego that sort of takes a lot of energy out of the room. The reason it's important to understand the distinction is because for the reader, when your mind goes into active mode, that's when you have the opportunity to find something in your belief system that is out of harmony with reality. That's when you can find the lie that says you're not good enough, or you need to have more self-importance here, or it could be any number or thousands of things it can say to you. But the key is to catch it when it's in active mode, when your emotions are involved, when you're sort of flared up and energized in a negative way, to be able to find out what has caused this so that you can change that belief. You can begin to challenge it. That's why it's so important to understand that distinction.
Components of conscious change. And when I look at that, I look at it as a structure of alignment, how we have to align our mind, our actions, our words, our thoughts, our energy to actually be able to create what we want. And to create that alignment, we have to align to the correct identity that will produce the final outcome that we're looking to produce. Talk about how that needs to shift in relation to the dreams and the desires that they hold based on the identity that they are clinging to at the moment. Are they also locked to that identity, or do those also need to shift?
Well, it depends. It depends how lock and step they are with the truth. If their dreams are fantastical that may take lifetimes to happen, they have to understand that that's a journey. If I want to go climb Camelback Mountain, which is in city here, that's a 4 hour, 3 hour journey for me to do. If I want to climb Kilimanjaro, that's a whole different process I have to be aware of, a whole different kind of training, a whole different preparedness. So depending on the dream, you have to be in line with what the steps are to create the dream. You cannot be disillusioned about it. You have to really understand what it takes. So that's number one. Number two is you have to understand that who you believe you are has directed all your thoughts and feelings thus far. So it's created the reality that you're experiencing. And if it's not working in terms of what you want, then you have to be able to reflect on and see what has kept you from what you want. What actions have you taken that have prevented you from what you want? What actions have you not taken that you are required to take to increase the probabilities that something will occur? So with athletes, it's very easy. The results show them where they're at, and they know where they need to get a skill better, learn something technical that can help them be better in certain situations. And they also have to do the mind work that shows where their belief system lacked sort of that dominance that will own that moment. And that stems from a belief in themselves. And that's where the onion gets peeled back on self-respect, self-honor, self-love. It's just a part of the mindful and self-awareness process. So everybody has to go through that process to ultimately get to what they want. Sometimes people get things without even knowing it, like consciously. It's just a part of who they've been, and it happens, but they can't keep it. And so they may have had the power and the belief to create something. We see this in pop culture all the time with entertainers, for example, who create unbelievable stuff in music or in television or movies, but yet eventually the construction of who they are, the insecurities, disbelief, the deep-seated identity comes to light and ruins it for them. And then they have to rebuild again from the right conscious understanding in order to keep it the next time around.
With the culture that we live in and the self-aggrandizement that it can take place, especially on the negative side of social media and influencing and all of the types of things that young people are exposed to today, there can be this pursuit of what is perceived as happiness through acclaim or notoriety or certain goals that is very much a false self born out of perhaps feeling invisible or insignificant or low self-esteem and all of these things. So the direction of the dreams then go on a trajectory that actually match that lower self. That's the foundation that you're saying will then rise back up where something could crumble.
Well, I think that social, when you're young, you don't have perspective, right? And so social gives you a very skewed perspective of who you should be, what you should be doing compared to other people. That can be dangerous because it can take already insecure feelings when you're young and trying to find your identity and really shove them to the negative side where you feel completely worthless, your life doesn't matter, you're not good enough. That's the danger of social media in terms of shaping the world in some completely wrong way, a way that's not reality. The key with the invincible mindset is to understand your worth is never in doubt. Your capability to create and build what you want in your life is never in doubt. And to always be aware of how the world is unfolding, how negativity is trying to trap you in social media, and how to take more control over your mindset to know that you're good enough and that you will create ultimately what you want as you continue to believe in yourself and take the steps necessary. But as you mentioned, social media for young people is really important that there's someone there that can give them perspective on what the truth is about life, and that's just one tiny little fraction of over 8 billion people that has been cultivated, curated, and edited to show you only the best of the best. I think that's the important thing with young people. Aside from building up their understanding of who they are and what they are capable of, that's another big part of this entire mental health crisis, is that young people do not have enough information feeding them in terms of what their worth is. And, as I say in all the books, your existence in matter is the self-evident truth that you matter. Like, that's never in doubt. You matter. You have a heart and a soul that is ready to explode in such an unbelievably rich and powerful way in the world. And it's about protecting and cultivating that energy.
I can see a generation of individuals that are really desiring to do good. They're wanting to shine their light. They're wanting to put their best foot forward. But there is also that falsity that is the daily grind, the constant busyness, the need to produce more and more and more that seems to infiltrate that generation of new and upcoming individuals, whether it's personal growth, spiritual growth, business. There's kind of a hunger, go get mine attitude, and it keeps people from being present. And so this invincible mindset and the presence of timelessness in the mix of all of that. Because if we're so busy constantly running, building, hungering after and trying to attain something, then are we really ever touching the true I am? Or is that where yet another false mask gets created?
Well, I think the key in that is to educate young people that what they do in the world is not based on how much they conquer or achieve, but on who they are and how they treat other people. That's really where someone's worth comes from. Whether they run a tech company and make billions of dollars, or whether they're a checkout person, there is no difference in a sense of human worth. The worth is the same. It's about how you treat yourself and the energy and the love that you put out to other people. And I think if we can educate more young people that whatever they want to do is good enough, and that they don't have to fall into this narrative of getting mine and being aggressive and chasing the biggest possible dream possible and killing themselves in the process from a standpoint of exhaustion and mental disharmony, then we're really producing the best human beings, because everybody's going to find what is their passion. And some people will be very aggressive in the world, and other people just don't have that. They just want to live quiet, peaceful lives. I just want to make sure that both of those groups of people know that whatever they do along the way, that being kind and being compassionate, putting out good energy in the world is the most important piece of that. And that comes from understanding that your worth in who you are as a human being is never in doubt. You have value and worth. So it's not a matter of if you matter, but only a matter of how you're going to choose to matter in the demonstration of that energy. And then everybody can go be who they want to be from that foundation. But that's what we have to teach our young people.
You have a wonderful exercise in the book where individuals self-estimate how they view themselves. Get the book if you want to go take that test and discover where you fall in that. But self-view is such a critical part of moving into a truly different state of being.
I think the important part in that part of the book is to really show people how what you just said is true. How you feel about yourself is the set point for everything that's going to come from that. What you experience, how much mental balance and peace and harmony and fulfillment and joy and desires and experiences realized all comes from that idea you have about how you feel about your worth and who you are. And so the example shows how, like a sphere or a bubble of possibility, it continues to grow in size and scope in terms of what you can accomplish, what you can do, and how you can feel about yourself as you realize more and more of your worth and how much you matter in the world. And so the book obviously is leading you more and more into that unlimited potential through an understanding of your unlimited worth.
And this book really is about liberation. And if you look at ancient texts, sacred texts, they all speak to liberation in sometimes esoteric, sometimes lofty terms. But ultimately, we must liberate ourselves from ourselves.
Any ancient text, scripture, religious, philosophical, spiritual, is all about the liberation of self coming from the liberation of mind. Also, along with that liberated self comes an expanded awareness on how to move energy in the world, your thoughts, your feelings, and how this beautifully divine universe is just waiting to shower us with more and more and more of what we're looking to create and experience as we come into this greater awareness and understanding. So to open your mind to wisdom and insight, to know that the universe is always connected to you, never leaves you, and is just waiting for that state of readiness in you to trust the process and to learn more about really who you are and what you are capable of. And if there's been any magic in my process with individuals or athletes that's created so many of these wonderful, incredible stories, it is imbuing people with that understanding that in the next moment, it can all change.
You also have within the book a powerful section on self-limiting concepts like regret, guilt, and shame. And so often these plague individuals in ways that can be life-altering and life-lasting. And there's a powerful story in there where you're speaking with a gentleman who has held a lot of shame and regret around having an affair. The realization that you brought him to was quite powerful, because usually we drag those experiences along, never quite letting them go. They're kind of like these tin cans that drag after us with the threads that make noise behind us.
Mm-hmm. Good analogy. The idea was he wanted to find love again and do it right this time and experience company and love and companionship. But there was overbearing guilt and shame and regret over what he did in his past relationship. And so as it relates to his new intention, and what I asked was, how does it serve you to carry that if you're looking to create something new? Because the universe, if you say, I am guilty, I am shameful, I am regretful, the universe is going to put you in another situation and your ego is going to be directed to go and experience more of that I am guilty, I am shameful and regretful. So it will only help to repeat the same unwanted pattern. The only way for true liberation is true forgiveness. And the forgiveness does not come without consequences. He experienced plenty of consequences from the loss and breakup of his marriage by his own actions. That was self-evident in what he already experienced. But the forgiveness really freed his soul to be able to see that in this moment, he can create something new from a new idea of who he is, one that is free of guilt, shame, and regret, and one that looks to honor more self-respect, more self-love, more trust in something going forward, more sacredness for a relationship and how to treat it and how to be connected with someone of mind, body, and soul monogamously. As he freed himself from that, he allowed himself to go into a state of potential and possibility where he could now create that in his life. And with the experience that he had, know how to own it and honor it sacredly. So that's the process there. It's a process of forgiveness, not a lack of responsibility, not a lack of awareness of what you did, but you just take the negative, heavy burden off of your soul that will only serve to create more negativity, and you free yourself to be that new version of yourself now.
That's very powerful, and I'm sure that that was life-altering for that client. I'm continuously telling individuals to slow down, to be with themselves, to really give themselves the space to allow the energies to rise in their bodies so that it can rise in their minds, and they become aware of it. So many want to fight against the world or what's happening or the polarity that we see on different issues and against different people or things that are taking place. And yet people don't realize it's my very consciousness seeing duality that creates duality. So this conversation about becoming invincible, about transcending identity, about shifting to a different state of I am, it doesn't just change the individual's experience. It then has the opportunity to ripple to change our collective experience.
Exactly. There's a lot of things in the world that are challenging people right now. And the trap is to get caught in the mental resistance of what is, because that creates anger, that creates anxiety, that creates worry. And it's a non-creative state. So what you want to have happen in the world, you can't move your energy towards shifting the probabilities of that occurring. You're stuck in the anger and the resentment and the hate, which initially, based on certain things that we've experienced, is understandable because it runs completely counter to so many millions of people's value systems. But if we're talking about, SIMRAN, the most powerful and elevated state of the master or the Zen state, is to really, as soon as you can, come to a place of acceptance with what is. Now, that does not mean condoning it. I want to be very clear about that. You do not condone it, but you are no longer resisting the truth of what is. Once you're in that state, there's no disharmony. When there's no disharmony, there's clarity, and there's clarity of intent and clarity of who you want to be in relationship to that, and the energy and what you want to do to go out in the world and begin to make a difference in that. But you cannot do it from a state of disharmony or resistance. These are big challenges, but we can all come to a state of acceptance that it is, whether we like it or not. And then now, what can I do? Where do I want to go with it? And what I've done, it has been my intention just to ramp up the love in any way that I can to help more people on this planet become compassionate, loving human beings who see our unity and our collective connection to one another rather than our separateness. So that is my dedication, to continue to do that. And if I was in resistance and anger, I can't create. I know that. And it can be very easy, to slip into that, because it's such a slippery slope and it's such a trap and a web that tries to catch us. Think of Star Wars and Yoda saying, anger leads to hate. Hate is not the way of the Jedi. The way of the Jedi is to rise above that so that you can stay clear on what your mission is to overcome.
Well, thank you for being the example and the guide. And it's another illustration that to be invincible has nothing to do with winning the fight. It is the transcendence of having the need to fight. From Howard Falco's book, Invincible, The Mindset of Infinite Potential and the Secret to Inevitable Success, the invincible mind is an incredibly sacred state of being. In this state, you have realized your power as a creator and are open to the beauty of life and where it takes you in terms of your peak potential. A new you is now emerging. I am grateful for this sacred eternal moment. I am a perfect creation, born of a perfect universe. I am exactly where I'm supposed to be at this moment on my creative journey. I am aware of the infinite possibilities that are always available to me. I am aware of how I co-create with life. Again, this is from Howard Falco's new book, Invincible, The Mindset of Infinite Potential and the Secret to Inevitable Success. If you'd like to find out more about private coaching or connect to Howard, go to howardfalco.com, totalmindsports.com, or his foundation, 8wisdom.org. Follow me on Substack, publication there which is Beyond the Illusion. I share a lot of my own musings and meditations and would love to stay connected there. And also my second new podcast called You Are the Journey. Until next week, I am SIMRAN, in love, of love, with love, and as love. Be well.
Thank you for opening your mind to a new reality, your heart to greater compassion, and your experience of aliveness with 1111 Talk Radio. Join host Simran next Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern Time to step through the gateway of conscious living. You are not on the journey. You are the journey.